What's up, everybody? Good evening. Welcome in. It is Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. We are your hosts right here at Iowa at the Voice of College Football. I'm Josh Hummer. He's Chris Meglio. We're here with you every Monday night at 6 o'clock, Thursdays as well for our call-in show. Great to be with you. You can follow me on social media at JoshOnRef. Follow my work, HawkeyesWire.com, and follow the Hawkeyes Wire page at Hawkeyes Wire on X, Facebook, you name it. He is at Chris_Meglio, and he's all over the place. And, well, let's just dive right in, shall we? It is a productive weekend for Iowa football. A couple of commitments. It was a busy official visitors weekend for Iowa football, and the first name to drop was Stevenson High School commit, Mr. Ronnie Hill, who I guess came in, Chris, and really impressed Phil Parker and the Iowa coaching staff with the way that he camped, the way he performed. He said, quote to 24/7 Sports, "It was a great experience being coached by one of the best defensive back coaches in the game. I love Coach Parker. He's a board guy. He's smart. He understands defense. He's the first person I ever knew who uses algebra in defense. He broke it down to me on the board, and I was shocked about how he understands the game," end quote. So Ronnie Hill, a defensive back commit, joins Mr. Marcello in this 2026 class as an Iowa defensive back commit. And Chris, it sounds like somebody who is a riser in this class. Didn't have a ton of big-time offers, still, I guess, doesn't, just based on his commitment to Iowa. He got the offer recently over the weekend and boom, committed straight away. He had some group of five schools, Northern Illinois, Miami, Ohio, and Kent State, Miami of Ohio, among others that were in the mix and had offered. Michigan State, he camped there recently, Ronnie Hill did, performed well, impressed their coaching staff, but not quite enough, I guess, for the Spartan coaching staff to get an offer. But he got the offer from Iowa, and Chris, he did not wait. He committed.
Yeah. Shout out Phil Parker, because that's what he does best. That's why he's been here for so long. He continues his reputation as one of the best defensive coaches in all of college football. Getting Ronnie Bell, is it Bell? I can't see his name. Ronnie and Marcelo VT. I'm so bad with names. Forgive me for that. But that's why he's got them all. That's why he keeps getting these good prospects. And again, it shows why he's such a good coach, because he's able to break it down in the simplest formats, make them understand it fast, make it in a way where, it's not overly complicated. And that's probably the reason why Iowa has a really good defensive reputation, and why they're so good consistently, because they break it down in the smallest steps. So shout out Phil Parker for that. Shout out Stevenson High School for giving us his prospect. Shout out Jalen Brunson, because he is from Stevenson High School. And shout out my guy, I don't know if he's watching, my guy Blake. He's also from Stevenson. So it's good to see Iowa keep building that defensive room for the future. Having these two guys, I think could be very special. And we'll just have to see what it turns out to.
Ronnie Hill, a 3-star. He's been a nickel throughout high school. He's obviously played some other positions as well. 6'1", 183 pound. He's again a 3-star from 24/7 Sports. 125th ranked safety according to 247. He's the number 18 ranked player from the state of Michigan according to 24/7 Sports. So he is a riser, and Iowa over the years, Chris, has identified players that they maybe like a little bit more than some other Power 5 folks out there. And actually, if you follow Iowa recruiting pretty closely, you'll notice that it's almost follow the leader at times. Iowa sends out an offer to a kid that maybe has really just kind of group of 5 interest at that point, and all of a sudden Northwestern and Nebraska and Michigan State and Wisconsin and a couple of those other programs start jumping in. They follow that leader, Iowa, and this coaching staff, and especially the defensive coaching staffs evaluation. And obviously Phil Parker, this defensive staff they saw in Ronnie Hill, someone that they thought was long, rangy, that could help them. One more quote from Ronnie Hill here. Quote, "I love the coaches, the players, and love how great the defensive backs are. They breed great defensive backs and really the program. The facility is beautiful. And really, I want to get coached by one of the best defensive back coaches in the game," which, end quote. Obviously, Phil Parker is just that. So Hill could play just about anywhere, I guess, in the defensive backfield. 24/7 rates him as a safety, but the expectation is that he will be a corner for Iowa. Could play free safety as well. I think the thought is that he'll start at corner and then you see what happens from there. But he's long, instinctive, ball skills, one of those doughboys that Mr. Phil Parker is accustomed to having.
Mm-hmm. I think he's coming in at a perfect time, too. I mean, by the time he comes in, I think, TJ Hall is probably going to be on his way out. Deshaun Lee, Deshaun Lee's a senior? Is he a senior this year?
No, he's younger than that.
Younger, junior. Well, he'll still be around, but I think with TJ Hall out of here and leaving, regardless that's graduation or the draft, probably the draft, I think. It's a good opportunity for him to come in and probably be the guy to step in as a freshman. I think he has a good chance of that. Why not challenge yourself? That's what I was about. Him being a defensive guy, it's very hard to come in and earn playing time right away than a school like Iowa. And that's just because of, the defensive prowess that we're always having defense. And, that's a testament to him. It's a challenge for him. He wants to get better. He wants to be challenged as much as he would love to play right away, like every other freshman would. This is a move where he's saying, okay, well, Iowa has a defensive reputation. They're a defensive school. I'm a defensive guy. He's basically saying he's okay with waiting his turn if it means being under the right coaching staff and being around the right guys to push him to be the player that he wants to be. I think that's a very telling move, and that's why Iowa gets a lot of character guys, because they understand what the system is, and they understand that it's a development rather than a play right away type system. We're not a school that really has a lot of freshmen playing right away in football. And, and a lot of these guys, they develop over the years and they become pros. So I really like that he has that mentality of, I'll earn my turn. And if I don't get it, I don't think he's going to be the one to pout, because this is his decision. He just wants to get better and be ready when the moment comes. And I think there's really little schools that'll be better at that than Iowa. And another thing is that when you list Northwesterns and Wisconsin's, that the schools that, follow what Iowa does, like we said on the other shows, when schools can get 5 stars, 4 stars, there's very little school is better than Iowa at finding the real talent. That's the 3 stars, the 2 stars, maybe even the 4s. They just find talent with character. When you got those two, it makes such a good combination and a lot of potential for the future. And, very little schools are better at doing that than Iowa. And that's why all the other schools that are not prominent football schools, they try to follow the lead of Iowa, because we always set a good standard. And that's a very positive thing to know right there.
Should say just good evening and happy Monday to everybody out there. Happy you're with us on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. This is Iowa at the voice of college football. Hit us with a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to let you know when we're live and when new episodes, so on and so forth, have dropped. Let's just say hello to everybody real quick. Hawkeye Howard, our friend, is in the house. Hey, my fellow Hawkeye fans. Jacob is hanging out. He says, "What's up, boys?" Logan, go Hawks in the chat. And Thor says, "It feels like Nebraska eventually offers everybody that Iowa is in the mix for." Thor, it does kind of seem that way at times. And Howard said on Ronnie Hill that he hears that he's a stud of an athlete. It was not just the defensive back Ronnie Hill for Iowa that joins the class. Hello, Mr. Kasen Thomas today, a linebacker out of Sioux City, who picked the Hawkeyes today over offers from Iowa State, Nebraska, Arizona, Kansas State, Michigan State, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And obviously joins Ronnie Hill as one of these latest Iowa commits. Official visitor from over the weekend, 6'2", 217-pound linebacker that announced his commitment with the caption, "I'm home, go Hawks." And he's a 4-star commit. Kasen Thomas is, according to On3, racked up. He's a two-way guy like a lot of these players are at the high school level. Played running back where he had 1,800-plus rushing yards, 26 rushing scores. But he'll play defense for the Hawkeyes, for Phil Parker, for Seth Wallace. He racked up 44.5 tackles, 15.5 tackles for loss last year, 5.5 sacks during his junior season up at Bishop Heelan in Sioux City. So Kasen Thomas, come on down. Another linebacker to add to the class and another in-state athlete to add to the class for the Hawkeyes.
Yep, in-state over Iowa State. That's the biggest no right there. Yeah, it's good to get him. Again, it's the same thing I said before. It's good to see guys want to be pushed, want to be challenged, want to be with one of the best defensive programs in the entire country. He had a bunch of Power 4 offers. Excuse me, I was about to say Power 5. Power 4 offers. And surely that's a tough decision when you got so many schools trying to, recruit you and trying to get you under their wing. But, ultimately made the best school win, and Iowa was the best school with him. It's good to, get some future talent and future defensive pressure in the trenches. I think that's really important. And the defensive room just keeps adding. This literally broke like an hour ago. So, yeah, I'm just speaking right off the head. I haven't seen too much about it, but it's very good to see, again, more people want to come here. They come visit the campus. They come talk to the coaching staff, and they realize that this is not only the place to develop as a player, but as a man. And there's very little schools that care like Iowa does on and off the field. So it's good to see him come by. And also, I will note back to the Nebraska thing, because we gotta talk about that. When they say little brother always looks up to big brother. Iowa's big brother, Nebraska is little brother. It'll always stay like that. That's why we always beat them, and that's why they always try to get our recruits. If big brother is good at football, then little brother wants to be good at football as well.
That is certainly a way to get Nebraska fans going that might find the channel. I like it. I'm here for it. Kasen Thomas is a 4-star commit, according to On3, where On3 loves him. On3 loves the Bishop Heelan product. 209th nationally, 13th ranked linebacker, number 3 player from Iowa. And Kasen Thomas, you love as a Hawkeye fan when you win the state recruiting battle. Obviously, you want to get into, like with Ronnie Hill, you want to get into Detroit. You want to pluck some talent from Chicago, from the surrounding states. But you also want to make your hay at home. And Iowa starting to do that in this class. They've got commits from Waterloo West offensive lineman Carson Nielsen. You've got Colin Witters out of West High School in Iowa City, who's another Hawkeye pledge in this class. So the number 6, number 8 players in the state of Iowa, according to On3. And now what did On3 rank him as? They have him as the number 3 player in the state of Iowa. And oh, by the way, the Hawkeyes very much in the mix for the top player in the state of Iowa, according to On3. That would be Mr. Julian Manson, another linebacker that you hope is a part of this class when it's all said and done. And that would be, if you get Julian Manson and you combine him with Kasen Thomas, that's a pretty good little linebacker class here that the Hawkeyes would have in 2026. Flipping on the tape, Chris, for Kasen Thomas, he can really rush the passer. Now, he's not a defensive end for Iowa in this class. I would imagine that he's coming in to be just that. He's coming in to be one of the next great linebackers. But it's nice when you flip that tape on and see somebody that, if they want on a passing down to line him up outside, that he's got some natural pass rushing skills to go attack a defensive lineman, go attack a defensive end, and go get to the quarterback.
What is I'm just curious, because now with these 2 latest additions, our recruiting class is really stacking up. Do you know by chance what our where our recruiting class stacks up for 2026 compared to all the other schools?
I can certainly tell you in just a moment here. It differs depending on where you look at. So 24/7 Sports, they've got Iowa's 11 commits now. 11 commits is ranked 49th nationally. And there's a ton of Big Ten schools in front of them. But look, Iowa does not historically land with regularity top 20, top 15, top 10 classes. That's not really the Iowa way. Here and there, the Xavier Wampa class, and folks can help me out, the several years before it, they had a couple of top 25 classes in a row, but that has not been a regular occurrence for Iowa. And obviously it's thought of differently depending on where you look. For instance, in this case, with Kasen Thomas, On3 loves Kasen Thomas for Iowa in this class. So you look up at On3's team rankings right now, Iowa's 35th. So that's a pretty substantial difference as compared to 24/7 Sports, where basically they got you 50, right? They got you ranked 49th in their team rankings. You're 35th, according to On3. So it kind of depends on where you look.
Yeah. Kind of surprised to hear that because our recruiting class stacking up, but maybe that's me. That means I got to pay more attention to these other schools. But I think we're doing solid. But as you said, not really a school to be in the top 10 and 15 consistently, but we're always up there in the Big Ten standings. So we do, like I said them hidden gems in the dirt. We're just really good at finding those rare diamonds that nobody else spots. So I think that, these two guys, they could both be it, or one or the other. I think either one of them has a good chance of being something like Jay Higgins or something, where they just, are not highly recruited, but they come in and absolutely blow everyone out the water.
Well, I like what I saw from Kasen Thomas's tape. I will sit down and dig in full to Ronnie Hill's tape and have maybe a more educated breakdown come Thursday night for everybody out there. But Kasen Thomas, to me, looks like somebody that can really run, go attack ball carriers. He's a great-looking pass rusher early in his career. And obviously he's done, more than that. He's been a good running back at the high school level. So exciting commitment. You, on a big recruiting weekend, would love to pay it off quickly. And it certainly looks like the Hawkeyes have done that in the form of both Ronnie Hill and Kasen Thomas. It's nice to see quick returns on what was a big official visitor weekend for Iowa. Again, Julian Manson, a couple of others, they were visitors this weekend, Chris. So maybe now you can get a little peer-to-peer recruiting going too.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'm sure that with these couple guys, I'm sure that whatever recruiting visit that Iowa's doing and whatever kind of system they have for these guys to come in, it's really impressing them. So we already got a couple commits. I know we got some more scheduled visits for the near future, and let's just hope we keep stacking them up. I feel very confident in how Iowa, Kirk Ferentz, Phil Parker, Tim Lester, and all them present themselves. And I definitely expect way more recruits to start looking at us, taking us seriously, and committing very shortly after the visit, because there's not many better programs like Iowa. We do it best.
It seems like we might have another name to be watching. Darian Jones is somebody that there's been a couple of crystal balls that slipped in for Iowa just today, this morning. So early this morning, let's see, a couple of 247 reporters submitted crystal ball predictions for Iowa to land Darian Jones, who is another defensive back in the 2026 class out of Omaha North. So Nebraska kid, Omaha kid, Darian Jones, 6'1", 170-pound defensive back. He's a 3-star, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, 542nd nationally, number 43 cornerback, second-ranked player in the state of Nebraska. Sounds better when you phrase it like that, right? The second-ranked player in the state of Nebraska. But a couple of folks, Mike Schaefer, who is with Nebraska Insider, that's the Husker 247 page. He, this morning, put a crystal ball prediction in for Darian Jones to Iowa. Cyclone Alert, a reporter over there, put in a crystal ball for Darian Jones to Iowa. So could be another commit right around the bend for the Hawkeyes.
Mm-hmm. and let's hope on it. The more we can get, the better. The more we can stack up the young talent, the more we can add to the depth. The more that we show the country and the other recruits that players want to come here and be a part of this is proving something. So let's hope that we keep this reputation up. Let's keep it going and keep stacking them up. Keep getting the young talent, the underrated talent that nobody else sees.
Well, we spent a good deal of last week talking about, speaking of this recruiting class, a quarterback that had decommitted from Iowa. And here we join you 1 week later, and it took just 1 week for Cash Herrera to find his new landing spot. It is with Curt Cignetti. It is with the Indiana Hoosiers, the Bishop's School quarterback that had been committed to Iowa early last fall, all the way from last fall until a week ago. Cash Herrera has decommitted from Iowa, and now he's found his new landing spot. And again, it's still in the Big Ten Conference, and it's with Curt Cignetti and Indiana.
Yeah, Curt Cignetti, man, he took one from us. He's done a good job with that program. You can't fault him too much for wanting to go there and be a part of something that turns special really fast. Credit to him. I just wonder if I wonder when he did commit it from Iowa, if this was a place that he already had made up in his mind that he was leaving. I know that's the case for some players where if they're leaving a program, they already know where they're going to go, but they give it some time. I wonder if this is one of them cases. I know there's a couple of quarterbacks in front of him. They don't really have a lot of veterans. They have one senior, one junior, a sophomore, and a freshman. So I believe they have all four right now. He would have a chance to go in and compete for a spot right away, bearing that right now I think the junior don't know names, but the junior is starting. The senior is the third string, the sophomore is the second string, freshman is just there. So he has a good opportunity to develop and play by his second year. I think maybe that was a big component in this. But he's joined a good program, and I just hope that if he does have a chance to get in there in a game against Iowa, I hope that we could get a pick six and show him that he's on the wrong side of the football.
Does this add anything to Iowa, Indiana?
Small, like that. It's not a huge. If it was a 5-star guy, that add a lot. It's nothing crazy, but you're gonna remember that. You will remember that.
If he winds up being a good player, then you certainly, remember it. And I think it depends on what the trajectory over this season and the next couple of seasons looks like for Indiana. They, right now, Chris, are a little bit of an it program, right? I mean, by their standards, coming off what they did a season ago, they won their first 10 games in 2024. They finished 11-2. They, of course, lost to Ohio State in the 11th game of the season. So that was the first loss. They didn't go to the Big Ten championship game, so they didn't win the Big Ten, but they did get into the college football playoff. They kind of got stuffed into a locker by Notre Dame in that playoff game. You look up, I think the final score was 27-17, but it really was not that close in that college football playoff game. But they went to the college football playoff. They won 11 games. They went and got a transfer portal quarterback in Fernando Mendoza that a lot of other people wanted out there that they think's pretty talented. So that's a program that let's see what the next act looks like under Curt Cignetti, and obviously maybe Cash Herrera after Mendoza. If he's the next really talented quarterback for Indiana, maybe Cash Herrera is the quarterback right behind him next in line.
What grade is Fernando Mendoza? What grade is he in?
He's pretty young. I think he just completed his freshman season, I want to say, at UCLA. So, I mean, he's got plenty of roadway in front of him. So, I mean, he's going to be there for a couple of years and, is expected to be good at Cal.
He's a redshirt junior, and right now he's the one that's projecting to start. So it looks like they're going to use him. You use him right out the gate. That was credit to them. They keep stacking up the QBs. Now they got, I believe, 5 on their roster as of what I know. but Iowa has a good amount too. As we said before, this is not a total loss for Iowa, considering we already have our quarterback for now at Mark Gronowski and our potential quarterback of the next couple of years in Hank Brown. This is not a total loss for Iowa. If anything, it's just bittersweet. Not bittersweet, sorry. It's bitter, period. Just plain bitter to see him go to a rival Big Ten school. I think that makes it leaves a little more sour taste in your mouth. So I think if Mark Gronowski or Hank Brown, if Cash Herrera ends up starting against Iowa at some point in their career, if one of those two could have a better quarterback game and Iowa takes the victory, then I think it'll feel a little extra sweet for Iowa, Indiana. But this definitely adds a little bit of a small fire, just like a couple droplets of gasoline on that fire that's already flamed.
Yeah, Mendoza, as you pointed out, from Cal, mixing up my California schools, and threw for 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6 picks, which explains why he was a little bit out of sight, out of mind for me, not being, a Big Ten guy. So, but he's obviously set to be a Big Ten guy now. And again, somebody that everybody wanted, big quarterback, 6'5", 225 pounds. And maybe Cash Herrera's the next guy in line behind him. So interesting. Obviously, Curt Cignetti, Indiana, they've got some momentum right now. I think this is an important season for them. It's important to see if Mendoza can build upon what Curtis Rourke did. Rourke was a big-time quarterback in the league a season ago, and someone that came from a lower level and came in and was really good in the Big Ten, which should be encouraging for Iowa fans. It shows that you don't have to have played, from one Big Ten school to another Big Ten school, or from an SEC school to a Big Ten school, or Big 12, you name it, right? You can come from the group of 5 level and be a big-time player in the Big Ten, which we're certainly hoping that Mark Gronowski from the FCS level can come up to Iowa and be a difference maker for the Hawkeyes at quarterback. But that just the interesting development today, as Cash Herrera has a new landing spot, and unfortunately, it is right down the road from Iowa, and your paths probably set to cross at some point.
Yeah, that's I don't really know what else to say on the situation. It's just I don't like. Okay, I'll be very honest. I don't like he went to a Big Ten school. I don't like it at all. But I just really hope we beat him. But as you said, you never know where these guys from outside of the P4 schools, how they'll perform. It's possible that that these guys could really, like Fernando Mendoza, like Mark Gronowski, they can come in and be the talents that they're anticipated to be. We've seen that time and time again, where those guys, all they need is a chance to take a chance somewhere. They really love the game. Then they end up, doing something really good just because of the love of the game. And they don't take it for granted, and they take their moments. They take their opportunities. So that's what we kind of have to hope with Mark Gronowski. And I'm sure Indiana is praying that Fernando Mendoza does, something similar to like he did last year.
Howard says, we've got Indiana this year for homecoming. So you can yourself this year, you can alter the trajectory of that program. You can take it into your own hands, what it looks like for Mendoza and for Indiana, because obviously you host them early in the Big Ten schedule. So, and we don't know about Cash Herrera, what the future schedules look like when maybe Iowa would see Herrera, and obviously you'd have to go in and win the job. And right now, Cignetti looks like he's fully capable of maybe year after year, Chris, just going out and plucking a good quarterback out of the transfer portal, bringing somebody in from a lower level, or getting Mendoza like he did in this go around. So there's no guarantees that Herrera's even the guy for Indiana down the road, but just kind of interesting 1 week removed that Cash Herrera has. He wanted to, it sounded like, Chris, explore other options and see what other campuses had to potentially offer him. He went to Bloomington and committed to the Hoosiers. So that book, I guess, closes now for Hawkeye fans. And we say, I wonder which direction Iowa's going to go at quarterback in this class.
Yeah, they're definitely going to, I'm sure they're going to do do their due diligence. That's a weird phrase, weird way to put that. Do their due diligence.
Tongue
Look
twister.
around. Yeah, tongue twister. They're gonna go around and try to find another replacement. I'm sure. As we said on previous shows, you can never be content. Even championship teams, are never content. They always look to add more. So I'm sure that Iowa was already still, kind of scouting the 2026 class at quarterback. I'm sure they have an idea of, who they might want to add, who they might want to bring in, or who is just worth reaching out to and, seeing if they're interested back. I think that when a player decommits, as I just said, I always feel like they have an idea of where they're going, unless you are, I know it's kind of opposite flip. Unless you're New York Knicks and you fire a coach without a plan, you don't really depart from something or someone without having an idea of who you want to go after. So, we had a couple decommits recently, and I'm sure that because of that, they may, if they don't feel like Iowa's the place for them, then they're already thinking, okay, well, what is the place for me then? What would be a better fit? That's already in their mind, and they have to think, okay, well, I think this place might be better. Maybe it's worth leaving Iowa because I like this place better. There's no way they just leave without a plan.
As we start thinking about this Iowa football season, what could be potholes for Iowa? I tend to operate in the positive, and you heard my prediction a week ago that I think there's a pathway to Iowa winning 10 games. If everything goes right, maybe even 11, right? I think the schedule, you can go do that if you're Iowa. But what could be the potholes when you look at this season and you think about what maybe we don't know, what are question marks with this group? What's the first thing that comes to mind as if things don't go according to plan, it will be because of this?
Defensive interior. I think our offense is going to be above average, better than what we see in recent years. I think losing Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson is just a big hurdle to overcome. As you just said, and I operate the same way. I tend to run on the positive, but sometimes it is okay to be a little truthful. And I am worried about the linebacker position. I think our corners, we have good corners, we have good safeties. I believe they're going to have a year where they, kind of rebound from the down they had last year. Our defensive line didn't change all too much. That relatively, or we lost a couple guys, we did, but I just feel like more specifically the linebackers, I think if you can't stop the run, that creates a lot of problems for the defense as a whole, and that leads to better passing games by quarterbacks if you can't stop the run. If you got to really extra focus on that, just because you're having a hard time stopping it. I do believe the game is played, it's won and lost in the trenches. That's the old saying, and I still believe that's the way now. And I think that if Iowa can't defend the inside, defend the short yardage, then it's going to create a lot more chaos in the long yardage. And we're going to have some games like we did last year where a Michigan State or UCLA where the defense absolutely collapsed. It just got to stop the run. The run is crucial in any era of football.
I feel okay about backer. I think depth at, I'm talking linebacker. I think depth at linebacker beyond Jaden Harrell and Carson Shire, that could be a question mark. The Preston Reeses, the Weisskopfs of the world, are they ready? If something happens injury-wise to who we think are the starting backers for Iowa, if something happens to Jaden Harrell or Carson Shire, that could maybe be concerning for Iowa. But I think those guys are waiting in the wings, Chris, and I think they're going to be pretty good. Defensive line, Max Llewellyn, I think, has a chance to be a star this season for Iowa. Aaron Graves has shown you a ton of positive signs. Ethan Herkett brings proven production back. I like Jeremiah Pittman. So up front, I'm excited about what the defensive line looks like. Kenneth Merriweather, what does his growth, Joseph Anderson, how much of steps forward can those guys take? But you've got a solid group to count on initially with Llewellyn, with Herkett, with Graves. That's a great starting point up front for Iowa and Pittman there as well. So I think defensive line, Iowa is going to be very, very good. I feel good about linebacker, but again, just because, and I guess, you can point out we haven't seen a lot of Jaden Harrell or Carson Shire either. So if you say, hey, the depth behind those guys because you haven't seen them, well, you haven't seen the starting linebackers either. So I have talked myself into that circle right there. But I think those guys are going to be good. For me, it's corner, right? TJ Hall, Deshaun Lee. Can one of those guys emerge? Jalen Watson, we've seen bits and pieces. Does he take a leap forward? Do you have a lockdown guy at corner? And do you have anything particularly steady at corner across the board? I think that's a question for Iowa. And if things go wrong, it could be that you got a couple of defensive backs on both sides at corner that maybe can get picked on a little bit. So we'll see there. I think that is a question mark for Iowa. TJ Hall, Deshaun Lee, I've told you a number of times, you get one of those couple of guys to step up. And then Jalen Watson arrives, and we'll see about Shaheed Barrows, who is a transfer addition for Iowa. So cornerback, safety, I'm still waiting on Xavier Wampa to be the star. So I think, just defensive backfield in general, you could have questions there for Iowa. I thought Kale Kolarek in the open spring practice was pretty impressive. So he looks like somebody that maybe can help them quite a bit. Intringer, I know we've heard really good things, but need to see him produce as well. So probably defensive backfield, if things don't wind up the way that they should, that would be the first area that I look at. And then obviously, right, you got to say, and I think it's going to be a step forward, but quarterback, if Mark Gronowski isn't this upgrade for Iowa at quarterback, then probably by year's end, if we're saying where did it go wrong, you'd have to say that Gronowski didn't create quite the spark that we thought, sitting here at the end of June that he would.
Yeah, I think he'll create the spark, personally, but I do want to take it back to the cornerback thing because that is a good point where there is a lot of pressure on him. Specifically, I feel like TJ Hall has pressure because with the way he's been praised, and the year he kind of had last year was a little bit of a down year. The way he's been praised through spring, now he's kind of looked at throughout all the Hawkeye fans and saying that he's going to be one of them leaders to step up and be, the All-American, an All-American back. I'm just curious on the other side. Deshaun Lee did not have a good year last year. Could it be better? Absolutely. But I think bringing in a guy like Shaheed Barrows, I just wonder if Shaheed Barrows is going to take his spot. I wonder if Shaheed Barrows is going to be, the guy to come in and play the other side of TJ Hall and have Deshaun Lee be the backup. Because I'm assuming if Deshaun Lee Shaheed Barrows committed here, Kirk Ferentz must have told him that he at least had a good shot to be the starter. That's just kind of what I'm thinking about right now.
Couple of comments. Mike jumps in and says, Nebraska just landed a nice one, a commit, and Nebraska's going to start beating us again this season. Mike, I'll allow the first comment, but the negativity we can't allow on the second. No, they've gotten a couple of commits, it looks like, today. Charlotte Christian 3-star running back Jamal Rule has committed to Nebraska, and he's not, at least according to On3, he's not regarded as a quote-unquote elite running back. But look, Iowa knows that you don't always buy into star ratings with every single player. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he's not a great running back because, hey, we'll see how Jamal Rule develops. I'm just saying that as we sit here today, he's not regarded as a 4-star, 5-star kid committing into the class. And then Danny Odom. This might be, Mike, who you're talking about, the 4-star corner. Danny Odom announced a commitment to the Huskers today over Ohio State, Oklahoma. I know there were a couple of other schools in that mix. Let's see, Penn State, Clemson. So, yeah, I mean, some big-time schools that were in the mix for the 4-star corner, Danny Odom, who had 45 tackles, couple of INTs, pass breakups, fumble recovery last year, regarded as one of the top corners, the number 19 corner in the 26 class, and the number 27 player from the state of Florida, according to On3. So, yeah, a good day for Nebraska on the recruiting trail. So, a good day for Iowa and Nebraska on the recruiting trail. The Hawkeyes, a couple of defensive commits that they picked up, one defensive back, one linebacker. So it is that kind of time of the year where Iowa's going to start cashing in on the official visits that they've had recently, Chris. So's Nebraska and Wisconsin and Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, everybody's going to feel good about the way that, well, I shouldn't say everybody. There's probably going to be some fan bases out there that say, I wish our class was higher up in the rankings and we don't have enough 4 stars, 5 stars. But there's going to be along the way reasons to be excited, Chris, because the recruitments are coming to a close. So guys are going to start announcing and committing. And along the way, that's going to be exciting times. And today's been an exciting day for Iowa on the recruiting front.
100%. I was actually going to ask you, when does a recruiting portal close?
No, these guys can commit all the way up through the early signing period in December. So you're coming down the home stretch of this class. Anymore, the bulk of the class will sign. There's technically that spring signing day too still, but 95% of players anymore sign in that December early signing period, and it's signed, sealed, delivered. It's done by the time you get to early December. So what is that? 6 months away now left in the class. So there's quite a bit of time left for, Iowa to add to its 11 commits and for everybody else to add to what they've got in their class. There's a lot of time for things to change in an unfortunate way for classes out there around the country. I think everybody listening, watching knows all too well that the mind of a 17 and 18-year-old can change quickly in the recruiting world. So there's a long way yet to go in this thing. And yet in the, I would defer, I guess, to those that spend every day covering recruiting, but I would regard this as the home stretch of this class because some of these guys you've been talking about, if you're a recruiting expert out there for 247 Rivals on 3, you've probably been scouting, evaluating these guys for a couple of years now, and they've been getting offers and thinking about schools for a couple of years now and taking plenty of unofficial visits and official visits. So you're kind of entering that home stretch, and typically a lot of these guys, Chris, like to finalize where they're going before the high school season starts. That's not every recruit, but that's a lot of recruits.
Yeah, and that's why right now it's such a critical part in setting up these visits and doing your best to get these recruits that you're aiming to get. Our recruiting class is coming together. I think we've really diversified our recruiting class in terms of recruiting every single position and getting every position now besides quarterback. I think we're doing solid. There's always room to improve. There's always room to get more. But I think if it comes to a point where Iowa doesn't get as many recruits, maybe it's only just 2 or 3 or 4, or maybe even none at all. We don't want to see that. But I think if we don't, we're still in a solid position to get some more for the following future. And you got the spring too. So, there is a lot of time, with this new team and this new offense. Maybe we get a lot of guys come in the winter and in the spring when they see that Iowa's a place where you can come and play offensively, or, if Iowa's on the brink of the college football playoffs, we make the playoffs, or at least we in contention. That's something of that's an after effect of success is people wanting to come here to notice and they come. So maybe our recruiting speeds up right now, maybe it slows down, but I think that it's critical to lock up people now. It's even more critical to succeed in the season to lock up the players you really want to lock up in the spring. It's a matter of we gotta take advantage of this time now that we have with Mark Gronowski, that we have a new offense and revamped defense. Try to play our best, and I think if we do that, then the better recruits will come later in the recruiting cycle.
Yeah, no, I think it's a huge year for Iowa because it's the second season with Tim Lester. You went and got a quarterback in Mark Gronowski that we're all expecting to advance this offense, give us a competent throw game. Give us a dual threat quarterback. And if that is the case, we think these wide receivers are improved for Iowa. And we've kind of twisted and turned here, but the point of discussion was, hey, what are potential potholes for Iowa? I don't think this is the case, Chris, but what if these wide receivers aren't – what if it's not as deep as we think it is? That could be troublesome for Iowa. And beyond just this season, that, of course, would be problematic in 2025. But beyond this season, when you're talking about not even just selling to the – finalizing the 2026 class, though I think it could obviously help open some doors or close some recruitments for you if Gronowski takes this Iowa offense, and they clearly had enhanced numbers in a big way last season with Caleb Johnson. But if he takes it to where, okay, you're in the 70s last season and now you're a top 50, top 40 offense, and they move the football with regularity and they score touchdowns and they sustain drives, and these wide receivers, Reese Vander-Zee and on down the line, Jacob Gill, Caden Weegan, Sam Phillips, who came in from Chattanooga, that would be a nice thing. If he's out there making plays and it shows, look, you can come from somewhere else like Sam Phillips does and will do for Iowa and go make plays and enhance your stock, then all of a sudden you start trying to finalize recruitments throughout the fall into that December signing period and into really the next recruiting class in 2027. And it can open some doors that maybe have, quite frankly, been closed with the way that Iowa's offense has gone over the last 5 years or so.
Yeah. That's a good point you made about the transfer guys coming in. It reminds me of your other point you made last week or the week before that, 2 weeks ago, where Iowa should focus more on transfer guys, getting them and getting experienced guys rather than getting high school guys. So as much as we want to get the high school guys, and I'm sure if we succeed, if we really do have an up year, especially in offense, I'm sure that's going to lead to some guys, some higher ranked guys taking Iowa serious at the very minimum. If we can get a good recruiting class and get a good transfer class, because now I'm thinking about the two together. If we can get a good class for both, I think that sets us up well for the now and the future, especially at quarterback. I think quarterback's the most vital position for this recruiting cycle, for this next up year, whether that's transfers or high school guys. Just because we have this talented quarterback, yes, but he's leaving. And as one guy said in the comments, like Hank Brown is the young guy. We expect him to succeed. Thor Williams said, don't know about Hank Brown. He might not be second string. I think he'll be second string, but he didn't really play much at Auburn. He rarely played. So we actually don't even know what he's going to be like. We're just being optimistic of his arrival. So I think, there is some crucial positions out there. And if you're looking at high school guys, Iowa wants to get a guy where you can get him in young and develop him 3 years in. So by the time he's a third year, he really gets comfortable with the system, becomes a stud. We fill every position in very well. But now with Mark Gronowski here, speaking about the quarterback specifically, showing that a quarterback can come in and be successful at Iowa and actually run the offense and show that there's pieces around here that could contribute to having quarterback success. That opens the door for quarterbacks a lot, I feel like.
Eric jumped in and said, it was a pleasure, guys. Eric Herrera. I hope you're not Cash's dad and upset with us or something. We wish Cash well in the future in Indiana, if that's the case. And if you were just a Hawkeye fan hanging out for a little bit and you had to run, well, hope you have a wonderful night. What did you ask me, Chris?
I asked you I don't think I asked you a question. I just brought up the point that you said previously that the transfer is the way to go rather than high school. Obviously, high school is important, but it was interesting how you brought up Mark Gronowski and Sam Phillips because
I think it's important.
Right. You are, yeah. The transfers is the guys that have experience and can contribute right away is the guys that you really want to get.
No, that's right. I think you want a mix of both because you want guys that sign in the class and learn and develop. I think it's a balance, but look, you're trying to win and you're trying to win right now. And there's dollar signs attached to folks' names. And so if Gronowski comes in and he performs and Sam Phillips comes in and he performs and Jonah Pace or Bryce Hawthorne, those guys step right in both sides of the football, then it shows Shaheed Barrows maybe, right? It shows that, look, I can go to Iowa, I can produce, I can get paid at Iowa, and oh, by the way, then I can maybe go get paid professionally too, and particularly offensively, to show that this can be a positive destination for you, I think is key. Left tackle for Iowa is important, that you've found what you need there. Hopefully you've developed what you need there. If that is Trevor Lauk, if he's the guy at left tackle that, he morphs into what you need. You obviously tried to bolster the offensive line out of the transfer portal as well, Chris. But if you're talking question marks for Iowa, what goes wrong? Well, maybe that left tackle position and maybe one of those guard positions doesn't quite develop the way you want it to develop in 2025 when you think about Pieper at right guard. That, if we're trying to paint a picture for why this season doesn't go totally according to plan, left tackle and one of those guard spots where you have to replace and don't have as much experience, that would be another concern as well. Because, look, you got to set it up for Gronowski to go have success. And if pass protection is an issue, then that could be something we look back on and say it just wasn't quite fortified enough.
Yeah, 100%. If the quarterback has time to throw and time to think, he'll have a higher chance of being successful. And we've seen that in college football and in the NFL. The offensive line is really the key. It could make or break an entire offense, as all parts do, because football is such a team game. But especially offense, if you can't block for the quarterback, if you can't block for the ball carriers, then the ball handlers, then it doesn't lead to success. It's the history shows. So I think that we did bring back some of our we got 3 of our veterans we brought back. We did lose some key guys like Connor Colby. We had one more in there that I'm blanking on his name that left as well in the draft. But
Mason Richmond,
right? Seattle. He went to Seattle. I think we'll be fine. I think the 3 guys that we have left are gonna, get the 2 young guys right. I think the 2, whoever steps in, whether it's Tyler Locker or, someone else, I think that they're gonna, they've been developed. They know the system, and they're gonna come in and, be ready for their moment, as all Iowa backups are. They're always ready for their moment. And I think that bringing back those 3 key guys from last year, Aaron Graves and blanking on the other 2, man, sorry, it's been a long day, so my brain is not working too well with names especially. But I think bringing those guys back and at least having more guys than not of your offensive line be bringing back after having that season we had last year where the run game was so dominant and the blocking game was really good, is going to serve us well come the season. And it's going to serve Mark Gronowski well, where he could, count on those guys. So if he has to roll on one side of the field or the other, or even just kind of stay in the pocket for an extra second or 2 to find a target, he can count on those guys at the very least to set him up for success.
So in conclusion, reasons to maybe be concerned, I think corner, safety, just defensive backfield in general. I feel good about Iowa's front 7. I think it's going to be really good again. Defensive line, I think it's going to be a massive strength. If I power ranked position right now, that would be the top ranked position on this football team for me, for Iowa. Defensive line's the best group you have coming back. Linebackers, okay. There's question marks, but I'm also saying that, it's not that far removed that we sat here and watched Jack Campbell and Seth Benson get replaced. And, oh, by the way, you went and handed the torch off to Jay Higgins, and he was wonderful. You went and plucked one player out of the transfer portal in Nick Jackson, and he was terrific. So I expect more of that at linebacker, the development within the program, and hand that torch off to Harrell and to Shire. But the defensive backfield, I think, okay, it's reasonable to have questions there. Offensive line, left tackle, guard, pass protection, maybe for Iowa. And then, the running back position would be a question mark to some. replacing Caleb Johnson? How do you replace all that production? And I think it's a reasonable question, Chris, but I guess that maybe inexplicably, I'm not as nervous about what's going on at running back as maybe I am some other items offensively for Iowa. I got to see it with Gronowski in the Big Ten. Just got to see him jump to this level and steer the ship and be great, right? I think that I just got to see it there. I think Kamari Moulton is going to be really, really good for Iowa. And I think you got Jazzy and Patterson, who will be a solid secondary back, and then maybe McNeil in that mix as well. So if running back's a concern out there, look, you're replacing a historic running back in Caleb Johnson. But I think if we're talking about where things didn't quite go according to plan, I don't think we're going to end the season saying running back.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think running back could be a surprise, but I don't think it's going to be the key factor to our success. Unless, again, they surprise us. I think, as we said before, Kamari Moore and Jazz Patterson probably going to be a running back by committee, probably going to be a one-punch duo. I would love to see who's going to be the goal line, who's going to be the three-down back, or who's going to be a 1-2 back, and who's going to be the third down back. That's something that'll be to be determined. But I feel with the O-line, I feel pretty confident that at least the running backs can at least hold up and give us enough production to affect what the defense does in terms of the passing game, having to worry about the run. That's why the run's so crucial, because if you can't stop it up front, then it's going to create less attention behind them on the routes. So I feel confident in the run. I feel very confident. And I feel confident in the receivers too, whether, and I said too, I think it's going to be receiver by committee as well. Although I think Reese Vanderzee is going to be the guy that'll be the one. I don't think he's going to go off for a crazy season. I just think that the ball's going to be spread a lot on offense, and a lot of guys are going to touch the ball instead of, Caleb Johnson's going to touch the ball this many times. I can't say that about a player next season where they're going to touch the ball this many times, whether it's running back or receiver. But I think that's the good thing, is that, yes, we don't have that, first round, second round projected pick, but as of right now, things could change. But, it's good to say that we feel confident in so many of our guys on offense to make plays. That sometimes in that case, it is better than having just one or two star players. It's better when multiple guys could have an effect on the offensive game, whether that's running or throwing or catching.
Well, we are about out of time here tonight. Reminder, we'll be back on Thursday night for our call-in show. Hope to see all of you back on Thursday, and a couple of you jumping into the stream here with us on Thursday night at 6 o'clock for Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live, where who knows what all we'll be talking about. We'll cook up a couple of Iowa football conversations, I'm sure. Iowa basketball is in the midst of its first offseason practices, and it sounds like the early clubhouse leader for the starting five is a group that features Bennett Sturtz, Brendan Hassan, Tavion Banks, Alvaro Fulgaris, and Cam Maniau. So Sturtz, Hassan, Banks, Fulgaris, Maniau, kind of the early clubhouse leader five as starters for Iowa. And there's a ton of buzz on Alvaro Fulgaris and his potential as a stretch four, as a big-time playmaker for Iowa this season. We know about Bennett Sturtz, but Fulgaris, if Iowa basketball, Chris, is going to be a team that is in that top portion of the Big Ten, you really need, Hassan and Fulgaris both to be big-time transfer portal additions for you, but certainly the young man from Robert Morris, and at least initially, the early summer returns is that he's been impressive.
Yeah. I would expect him to be impressive for sure, because he was the player of the year in his conference. He had a great season, 41% from three, nearly averaging a double-double. I expect him to come in and produce. I think he's going to have a great season. I think him and Bennett Sturtz are really going to work well off each other, especially if Fulgaris can do both roll to the rim and pop out for the three on a pick and roll. Brendan Housen is going to be a sharpshooter. With Iowa lacking shooting the past few years, it's going to be nice to see that guys could step out on the three, shoot, and it's going to be nice that that Drake played a fast play style. They played up and down, intense defense, played with a lot of energy. So it's going to be nice to see that I'm sure in the first year of the program, when everything's so fresh and new for everybody, it's gonna be really exciting for all the players involved, and they're gonna play with high energy because they're so excited to get out there. Specifically, guys like Bennett Sturts and Alvaro Figueres, where they're getting new opportunities. They were the guy at their old school, they were the guy in their conferences, and now they have a chance to showcase their talents on a much bigger stage. I think those two are really gonna work well off each other, and they're gonna really pop off.
Well, we're right here up against it. Any final thoughts before we tell everybody, hey, we'll see you on Thursday night, and thanks for hanging with us?
Congrats to Oklahoma City. I know you're a happy camper today. Sorry to Indiana for Tyrese Halliburton. That is absolutely brutal. In a Game 7 where he had 9 points in 2 minutes, looked like he was on track to have an historic Game 7 and possibly will Indiana to the win. It'll be one of the most what-if games in NBA history. What if Tyrese Halliburton did not get hurt? It's a shame to see that, but congrats to Oklahoma City. I thought they were going to win regardless, and that's a dynasty in the making that you are witnessing in real time in your town.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There'll be a parade in Oklahoma City tomorrow. I'm sure we probably have quite a few Pacers fans that watch the show and watch the channel, so no need to gloat too much. That's a great team. I hate that happened to Tyrese Halliburton as well. That's going to do it for us. Everybody have a wonderful Monday night. Hope you'll come on back. Consider liking, subscribing, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and come hang with us. We're building an Iowa community here at Iowa at the Voice of College Football every Monday night at 6 o'clock. Thursday night is our call-in show. That's where we want you to sound off. Jump in and chat it up with us. That'll be Thursday night at 6 o'clock as well. Until then, for my man Chris, I'm Josh Helmer, and thanks for hanging with us on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. So long, everybody.
Thanks for watching, guys. We always appreciate it.